Welcome to Making with Laz. And in today's episode, we're going to be going over how to reverse engineer using Onshape. So what we're going to be doing is reverse engineering the standard Dewalt hose mount and switching it out for a 2.5-inch flexible tube. So here's the tube itself. So what we're going to need to do is take the measurements of the larger top, the smaller front, as well as the width of it to get our basic size of our part. Then we're going to flip it around to the side view so we can get a measurement of the little L-shaped piece on the top there, as well as the little notch that sticks out. Then we're going to turn the entire thing one more time to the top view. And then we are going to need to take a measurement of that little triangle shape on the side there. Okay, so now let's make our way into Onshape. So the first thing we need to do is select the plane we're going to be using for our main part file. So we're going to use our front plane here. And since we're making a revolve part, we're going to start off by making the revolve line and then drawing the rough shape. So we're going to need to measure our first diameter, which was 57 millimeters there. So that's the smallest part of the taper. And then we're going to measure the larger part, which comes out to be around 59 millimeters. So we'll add those dimensions into there. And then lastly, we're going to need to also check the overall length of it. So that there is around 66 millimeters. So we'll use that number there. And then lastly, let's see what the thickness of this guy is. So it's around 1.85 millimeters, but instead of that, we're going to do 3 millimeters just to kind of play it safe since we're making a 3D printed part. And then here we go. Now we have our baseline part to start with that has the taper. But we also need to add this little hard stop here so that our thing does not go too far into the part. So we will add that in there. I was just making these measurements as we went along. I figured it wouldn't be too much fun for you to watch me make every single measurement on the part. And then next what we're going to do is we're going to add the fillets on it. So the size that we make these fillets here are going to be half the width of the part itself. So here's the fitment test of the original one. So it's pretty nice. There's not much wiggle room. And then here is going to be our first test. So you can see there's a decent bit of wiggle room. There's like at least 1 millimeter of wiggle room left and right. So that's not too good. So I took a measurement to my best ability here because it was a bit of a tight gap. And then with this next one, we went a little bit too big. And then on the third try, we got it nice and snug, so that's good. Okay, so now we are going to go back in, and our hose that we're going to be using is 2.5 inches, so we're going to be making a little extension out to make it compatible with that. We're adding a bunch of the different features on the hose clamp itself. So right now we're just adding some of the ribs on the inside here, and then those are going to be roughly 2 millimeters thick. And then on the edges there, we didn't have the full size of the thing touching, so we did that. And then on the top, we added the chamfer to make it so that it slots in nicely, as well as doing a couple of spots here. And then here, we're adding a 45 degree because that'll give it our strongest possible orientation 3D printing wise. So here it is, putting our clamp on there. Looks pretty good. So after this, I tighten it down. I don't show you doing that just because it would be kind of boring. Then what we can do here is the other thing we can possibly do is, let's say instead of doing a straight line, you want to make maybe like a 90-degree bend or something. So what we can do is draw ourselves a curve. So did the wrong horizontal vertical there just because it's rotated a little bit. And then make sure it's nice and centered. So we'll do, what is this, roughly a 2.5-inch radius here, along with a line at the top for where the hose itself would mount. So we'll just make that 1.25 inches. So now what we could do is we need to make ourselves a sketch on the front there that will be the profile that we use to rotate the entire thing about. So if we click on the line there along with our sketch profile, now instead of just having a straightforward one, we now have one that is on a 90 degree. So you can do this for any angle that you really want. You can make the radius smaller so that it's a bit more compact. So here's what it looks like with the hose attached. But what we're going to do is we're going to take it off, and then we're going to attach the 90-degree one that I made, just because it'll get rid of the extra kink inside of the actual hose itself. At least I think so, but I have both in case one does not work as well as I'd want it to. So we also did the same thing to make a plug for the top here. So now we have the bottom and the top with a hose. So now what we're going to do is we're going to attach this guy onto here real quick. And then now we have our final assembly here. So what we're going to do now is we are going to turn this guy on. You'll see that the air starts flowing through there. And if we close up the little gap there, you'll see that the hose itself starts to kind of tighten together, pulls the bucket a little bit, but I think that should be fine over time. I might need a slightly longer hose, but overall, everything looks pretty solid. I can't complain. Well, I hope you found this video informational. If you did, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. I'll see you next time.